What's going on, everybody? This is Emerald Knight Leon, back again with another deck analysis. Today we're actually looking at two decks since they're both revolving around the same character, and that is Leomon. So first we're going to be looking at a EX02 Leomon deck that I built that I refer to as Jamming Leomon. So to start things off, we have 4 copies of Bukamon and 1 copy of Xiaomon. Xiaomon is basically here because a lot of our level 4s are going to be out and attacking, so that extra 1000 DP is going to be nice. Bukamon here is mainly so we get more memory when we play our Leomons from our Digivolution stacks, because our boss cards are going to be Metal Garurumon and Leopardmon. So on to our level 3s, we're running 4 copies of BT7 Gomamon. Basically, he is here for the extra draw power when we do bring him out with someone like Metal Garurumon or Leopardmon. And we're running 4 copies of Labramon for the extra memory when we have a jamming Digimon on top of it. That's mainly going to be late game. But also, we are running 4 copies of Patamon. So the reason we're running Patamon is because our method of going into our level 6s is warping our way through using Jogress. So how that works is basically we're going to rely on using Jerry's effect to hard play our green Leomon here. And having our blue Leomon on top of the Patamon so that at the end of turn we can warp in and Jogress into a Paildramon or Dino Beamon if we have to go over to our opponent's memory side. On to our level 4s, we are running 3 copies of Leomon, 4 copies of Leomon, and 4 copies of Leomon. Our BT1 Leomon that we're running 3 copies of, he has the on deletion gain 2 memory. Leomon is likely going to die a lot because the whole purpose of this deck is also chipping away at your opponent. So the odds of him dying is going to be a bit high. So gaining that extra memory is going to be very useful. 4 copies of the EX02 Leomon. This is mainly because he can serve as a blocker as well if we have a Tamer in play. And then he also, on deletion, gain 2 memory and draw 1. So it has decent draw power and memory gain from that. Finally, we have the BT4 Green Leomon. When Digivolving, suspend one of your opponent's Digimon with 3000 DP or less. We're never going to be using that ability. Never. The reason is because we are always going to be hard playing him. And we're going to be able to achieve this with Jerry, who lets us play a Leomon from our hand without paying its cost. On our level 5s, we're running 2 copies of Paildramon and 4 copies of Dino Beamon. In terms of your ratios for that, you can change it to however you want. The reason it's shown like this here is this is what I have available to me right now. Most of my Paildramons are in a different deck. But moving on from that, Paildramon is Jogressing a blue on top of a green. When Digivolving, return one of your opponent's Digimon with 6000 DP or less to the bottom of the deck, and then unsuspend this Digimon once per turn when attacking. So he is here for the aggression, but I prefer Dino Beamon actually, where when Digivolving, suspend one of your opponent's Digimon. When DNA Digivolving, that Digimon doesn't unsuspend during the next unsuspend phase. He also has the inherited. This Digimon gets plus 1000 for each of its colors, which is very useful as our boss cards are only 11,000 DP. So that's going to bump them up to about 13,000. So they're not going to be as fragile as normal. Moving into our level 6s, we're running 2 copies of Metal Garurumon from BT1 and 4 copies of Leopardmon from BT3. So Metal Garurumon, we're using him primarily to get our Leomons out, to get our level 3s out, for his when attacking effect. There's a lot of ways we can work with that. But outside of that, our boss card is going to be Leopardmon. Because while we get to play a level 4 or lower card from his stack when Digivolving, all of our level 4 or lower Digimon gain jamming. So having him out is very crucial to being able to swing in our way to victory. On On our option cards, we're running 3 copies of Howling Memory Booster. Howling Memory Booster is mainly here for source stripping and paralyzing our opponent, and also getting that extra memory to just warp our way as fast as we can in order to just try to shut the game down as fast as possible. We're running 1 Ice Wall, 2 Hammer Sparks, and 3 Fist of the Beast Kings. The Fist of the Beast King is mainly here because we don't have any hybrids to work with. We don't have any hybrids. We don't have a Blitz Omnimon. So how are we going to get that end game? Well, we are using Fist of the Beast King because we're likely going to have a Leomon out at the time. So with Fist of the Beast King, we'll be able to unsuspend one of our Leomons in order to just go for game. Finally, for our options, we're running 2 Davises, which is going to be our searcher for the deck. He's going to be able to search out Leomons. He's going to search out Pyldramons, Dino Beamons, any of our boss cards. He can search out all of those if we could grab 1 blue and 1 green. And finally, we have 4 copies of Jerry Kato. So outside of her on-play effect of playing a Leomon from our hand without paying its cost, during our opponent's turn, when an opponent's Digimon attacks either our Digimon or our security, we can suspend her in order to draw 1. So we can use her effect to slowly work our way into getting the resources that we need in order to go for game. So that is the EX2 Leomon deck. We do have another, which is going to be BT9 Leomon X-Antibody. And this is a different beast, really, because we're not focusing on jamming now. We're focusing a little more on suspending and just checking our opponent to make sure they can't do much, while still gaining a lot of memory. So instead of running the Bukamons, we're running 4 copies of Upamon for its draw power. We are going into our level 3s. We're only running about 13, but they are going to be 2 Syakomons, 3 Madoki Betamons, 4 Vmons from BT2, because being able to unsuspend during our main phase, we can trigger draw 1, and then EX1 Vmon, which will gain us a memory. Moving into our level 4s, we're running, again, 3 copies of Leomon BT1, 4 copies of Leomon EX2, but we are, instead of the green Leomon from BT4, we are now running 4 copies of BT9's X-Antibody Leomon. So Leomon X-Antibody, he is able to Digivolve from Leomon for 0. All turns when this Digimon would be deleted in battle, you may play 1 Leomon from its Digivolution cards without paying its cost. So this will only work if it's deleted in battle. If it would say be deleted swinging in security, you can use its effect. If it's swinging into an opponent's Digimon and you somehow gave it retaliation, you'd be able to use its effect. If it's deleted by a card effect, that you won't be able to use its effect, sadly. But this is very nice. Moving into our level 5s, though, we are running 3 copies of Panjamon. Panjamon here, when it has the inherited, when attacking, gain 1 memory. It's a once per turn. But we can use that to Digivolve into Panjamon X-Antibody. So this card has an interesting skill in that this card / Digimon's name is also treated as including Leomon. So a lot of I'm personally wondering if, because of the wording of that, we are able to use Jerry Kato's ability to hard play Panjamon X-Antibody, as it is treated as including Leomon. But outside of that little thing, all turns when this Digimon would be deleted in battle, you may play 1 Leomon from this Digimon's Digivolution source. So it's exactly the same thing as Leomon X-Antibody. My only complaint about the X-Antibody Leo and Panjamon is they don't have any inheriteds, which I feel would be very nice. And that is, at the end of the day, the main drawback to this deck. It's not going to be very competitive, sadly. But there is some interesting, fun things you can do. Moving on, though, we're running 3 copies of the BT1 Saber Leomon. So the reason we run this over the BT6 Saber Leomon, that's green, is while that one is nice, it does have an on-deletion effect, which is nice, but you're not using it for the on-deletion. You're using it to go into your X-Antibody. So this Saber Leomon, while only 10,000 DP, does have, when Digivolving, trash 4 Digivolution sources under one of your opponent's Digimon. If you're going up against something that's not X-Antibody related, that is going to be a very useful thing. Otherwise, yeah. However, we do need Saber Leomon because we're going into Dino Tigermon, which is an X-Antibody, and it Digivolves from Saber Leomon for 1. So that is going to be useful. And it hits a bit more. So it has the effect, if this Digimon has a card with Leomon in its name or X-Antibody in its Digivolution cards, suspend one of your opponent's Digimon or Tamers. And then, your turn, once per turn, when an opponent's Digimon or Tamer becomes suspended, you may unsuspend this Digimon. So there's a few things you can do with this. So if you have any cards that suspend your opponent's Digimon, you're going to be able to unsuspend him after he attacks and just really start wrecking your opponent's Digimon and clearing their board. Moving into our options, we have Ice Wall again, 2 copies of Fisted Beast King, and Samada Santi. So the reason we run this card is we can use it in conjunction with Dino Tigermon, where Santi's effect is you may suspend one of your Digimon to suspend one of your opponent's Digimon or Tamers. Your opponent's cards can't that are suspended with this effect can't unsuspend until the end of the next turn. So you're going to use this to suspend Dino Tigermon to trigger his effect so that he can unsuspend and just swing into anything else now. So if you really needed, you can suspend one of your opponent's Digimon, then unsuspend Dino Tigermon, attack to suspend another one of their Digimon. And then if you have more bodies out that can kill the second suspended Digimon, you can clear that out. Finally, we're running 2 copies of the X-Antibody card. This is mainly just here. Its security effect is nice of gaining 1 memory. We can place this at the bottom Digivolution card of one of our Digimon without X-Antibody. And because of its effect, X-Antibody can't be trashed by card effects, and we may Digivolve this Digimon into a Digimon in our hand with X-Antibody in its trait by paying its Digivolution cost. So that's nice. So if we didn't have Panjamon here and we had say Leomon X-Antibody, we could just go straight into Panjamon if we wanted. But finally, we're also running 2 copies of Davis and 4 copies of Jerry. So that is the BT9 deck. Moving on, there are some cards that you can tech into either one of them. As your level 3s, Vmon is still useful because of that jamming, so he can have some early aggression. Siako and Midoki Betamon. Green Leomon. Yellow Leomon is interesting. It is the only yellow Leomon we have. If it comes out of security at the end of the battle, if you have 3 or fewer security cards, recover 1. So how that could work is you could use Jerry's effect to hard play him, and then use something like Tactical Retreat to put him into your security. And if you're able to time it right, you can put him as your 4th security card, so that automatically when he's hit, you gain another memory. Talking about, there's BT7 Saber Leomon. When Digivolving, this Digimon gets plus 5,000 DP for the turn. On deletion, gain 2 memory. So that is, it's nice, but the trashing is also very useful. It really depends on how you want to go about it. We also have Howling Memory Booster for the BT9. Innocence Blizzard is a nice card. It basically will trash the bottom Digivolution card of all of your opponent's Digimon. And then up to 3 of your opponent's Digimon with no sources can attack or block until the end of your opponent's next turn. If you still wanted to keep some of the jamming with the BT9, High Speed Plug-in D is a useful card. It not only will give you jamming for a Digimon, but also they can't be blocked. Hammer Spark, Kaiser Nail. If you do have Kaiser Nail, this I would recommend actually in the in the EX02 version of Leomon, because it lets you play a Digimon from your sources. Hidden Potential Discovered is a card if you're running into, say, any trouble with playing a Digimon. Hidden Potential Discovered could be worked. Tropical Venom is an interesting one. So Tropical Venom is a card I would say would be very useful in the BT9 one. And the reason I say that is because since you're suspending your opponent's Digimon a lot, putting Tropical Venom onto one of your opponent's suspended Digimon and then swinging into it will gain you memory. So that can be useful. As for Digivolving, Plug-in S can work, as it lets you draw and then Digivolve. If you're looking for the Tropical Venom, I would also recommend Hell Masquerade. Since we are running Blue Digimon, we can gain the piercing effect of Hell Masquerade, so that we can just swing into a Digimon, gain 2 memory, and then also just also go into security. And in that case, offensive plugin A can be useful, as it gains a security check. But that is it for this particular review. I would say Leomon is definitely going to be... It's a deck that I love the idea. I love the concept of it. But it's not going to be competitive. It's not going to be tier 1. It's not going to be tier 2. Hell, it might not even be tier 3. It is very much more of a casual deck. I would say it's a deck that, if you're trying to learn how X-Antibody as a concept works, could very well be useful. In the concept of Digivolving from a Digimon for a different cost, it can be useful for learning that mechanic. But unless there's a lot of tweaking to it to like really bring it out, I don't see it being a competitive deck. But it is something that I really wanted to explore, especially in the EX2 with giving it jamming. So I hope you enjoyed this. Leave a like, comment, tell me what you think. What would you change in this deck? I'm always curious to know what other people think. And I will see you in the next video. Peace.